Hey everyone, welcome back to the Checkered Sky channel where we dive into true crime stories. Today, we're diving into a case that shook a quiet London suburb to its core. Picture this: a peaceful park, teenagers laughing, music playing, and then, out of nowhere, a tragedy that no one saw coming. This is the story of Jodie Chesney. It was March 1st, 2019, a chilly Friday evening in Harold Hill, a working-class neighborhood in East London. Amy's Play Site, a local hangout near St. Neots Road, buzzed with the usual crowd, teenagers chilling, catching up after a long week. Jodie Chesney, a vibrant 17-year-old A-level student, was right there in the heart of it. She sat on a picnic bench with her boyfriend, Eddie Coyle, and a group of 5 friends, their laughter mixing with the music blasting from a portable speaker. But as the clock ticked toward 9:25 p.m., the mood in Amy's park shifted. Jodie's group had noticed 2 figures lingering earlier, around 9 p.m. They didn't think much of it. Strangers come and go in parks. The pair left without a word, blending into the night. But 30 minutes later, they were back. This time, they didn't just pass through. According to police reports, the 2 figures moved with purpose, cutting through the darkness straight toward Jodie's group. No words, no warning, just action. In a split second, one of them struck, and Jodie's world turned upside down. Screams pierced the night. Jodie's boyfriend, Eddie, caught her as she collapsed, her friends frozen in shock. Despite their efforts, paramedics couldn't save her. The Metropolitan Police sealed off the park, launching a murder investigation under the Homicide and Major Crime Command. Harold Hill wasn't known for this kind of crime. Sure, London had its struggles with knife crime, but Amy's Park was a safe spot, a place for kids to be kids. Neighbors left flowers and notes at the park's edge, purple ribbons, Jodie's favorite color, tied to fences. Her grandmother, Debbie Chesney, took to Facebook, her words raw. "How have we come to this point where kids can't walk in a park without fear?" The police vowed to find answers, but the clock was ticking. Every hour without a lead meant the trail grew colder. And yet, one question hung in the air, unanswered. Who were those 2 figures, and what drove them to target Jodie? As police scoured Harold Hill for clues, a bigger picture began to emerge, one that hinted at a motive no one saw coming. As the purple ribbons multiplied across Harold Hill, tied to fences and trees in Jodie Chesney's favorite color, the community grappled with a question. Who was this 17-year-old whose loss left such a void? The police were hunting for 2 shadowy figures. But to understand why this case gripped East London, we need to know Jodie, not just as a victim, but as the vibrant soul she was. Let's step into her world, her dreams, and the family she held close, while the investigation begins to uncover unsettling clues about what led to that night. Jodie Chesney grew up in Dagenham, a tight-knit corner of East London, raised by her father, Peter Chesney, after he and Jodie's mother, Claire Gillam, parted ways when Jodie was 6. Peter, a devoted single dad, took on full parental responsibility for Jodie and her older sister Lucy. Their home was filled with love, even if it wasn't always easy. Peter described Jodie as clingy as a child, a little girl who craved connection and carried a quiet shyness. But with time, she blossomed, thanks to a primary school teacher who helped her find her confidence. In 2012, when Jodie was 10, Peter married Joanne, who stepped into the role of stepmother with open arms. Jodie and Joanne grew close, building a bond that Jodie cherished. In a 2013 online post, Jodie wrote, "Your mom is the person you grew up with, took care of you and listened to your problems. Jo is my mom, and nothing can change that." A testament to the love they shared. Joanne described Jodie as needy in her younger years, craving the maternal connection she'd missed, and together, they worked to create it. Their home was a place of laughter, with Jodie's silly sense of humor. Joanne called her a wind-up toy for her endless energy, filling their days. Jodie's passion for the Girl Scouts defined her teenage years. She threw herself into it, earning badges, climbing mountains, and canoeing with her troop. Just weeks before her death, she stood outside 10 Downing Street in her scout uniform, beaming with pride. She was also a self-taught pianist, her fingers dancing over the keys, and was 3 weeks shy of completing her Gold Duke of Edinburgh award. At Havering Sixth Form College, where she studied photography, psychology, and sociology, her principal called her excellent, hardworking, and focused. Jodie dreamed of working with animals or children, her heart set on making a difference. Friends remembered her as the one who'd leave them in stitches, her humor growing louder and funnier as she shed her childhood shyness. Jodie's bond with her sister Lucy was unbreakable. 2 years apart, they shared everything: secrets, giggles, and dreams. Lucy described Jodie as her other half, the one who always put others first. Their home in Dagenham was a hub for Jodie's friends, who flocked to her warmth. She had no enemies, just a knack for making everyone feel included. Even her dog Woody was part of her orbit. Jodie loved taking him for walks, a routine that grounded her busy days. But as Jodie's light shone brightly, the investigation into her death was casting shadows. While her family mourned, detectives were piecing together the hours before the attack. The answers were out there, buried in the streets of Harold Hill. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered details about 2 figures in the park and a motive tied to a shadowy world Jodie never touched. Let's walk through those last moments, following the trail of clues that would soon point to a devastating truth. March 1st, 2019, started like any other day for Jodie. It was a Friday, and she woke up in her Dagenham home, where she lived with her dad, Peter, stepmom, Joanne, and sister Lucy. That morning, Jodie was buzzing with plans, not just for the day, but for her dad's 39th birthday. She'd been chatting with Joanne about what to get Peter, tossing around ideas since she hadn't picked out a gift yet. Jodie was thoughtful like that, always wanting to make her family smile. Around 8 a.m., she posted on Instagram a simple message: "Happy birthday, Dad," with a heart emoji, a post that would later haunt those who saw it, racking up over 600 likes and countless comments after her death. Jodie spent the morning at Havering Sixth Form College, where she was in her second year of A-levels, studying photography, psychology, and sociology. Around 3 p.m., classes wrapped up, and Jodie left college, her backpack slung over one shoulder, ready to kick off the weekend. Back home in Dagenham, Jodie had one more task before her evening plans. She took Woody, the family's Yorkshire Terrier, for a walk, a routine she loved. Neighbors often saw her strolling with Woody, chatting on her phone or waving to familiar faces. By 4:30 p.m., she was back home, catching up with Joanne and Peter, who were getting ready to celebrate his birthday. Jodie mentioned she'd be hanging out with friends later, a typical Friday night plan. As far as we knew, she was going to do what she normally did, Joanne later recalled in an interview with The Mirror. Jodie grabbed her jacket, said her goodbyes, and left around 5:30 p.m., promising to be home later. She headed to Romford railway station, a short bus ride away, to meet her boyfriend, Eddie Coyle, and a group of friends. By 6:30 p.m., the group, 6 teens in total, including Eddie, had gathered, their voices lively as they planned the evening. It was caught on surveillance cameras. Romford was their usual spot, a hub for East London teens with its shops and fast food joints. But that night, they decided to head to Amy's Park in Harold Hill, about a mile from Havering College, a place they often chilled at. The park, near St. Neots Road, had a playground at its center and benches where teens hung out after dark. By 7:30 p.m., they were settled on a picnic bench, playing music from a portable speaker, the kind of low-key night Jodie loved, laughing, joking, and soaking up time with her crew. Around 9 p.m., Jodie's group noticed 2 figures in the park. They didn't seem out of place. Amy's Park was a public space, and people came and went. The pair lingered briefly, but left without interacting, fading into the night. Jodie and her friends thought nothing of it, their music and chatter filling the air. But at 9:20 p.m., those same two figures returned, moving with a purpose that hadn't been there before. According to police reports from the Metropolitan Police, they approached the group directly, cutting through the darkness. One of them wore dark clothing, his face obscured. The other was less distinct, a shadow at his side. Without a word, the first figure struck, plunging a knife into Jodie's back with such force that the blade snapped, leaving a 7-inch wound that collapsed her lung. The park erupted in chaos. Jodie's scream pierced the night, and her friends froze in disbelief. Eddie caught her as she collapsed, cradling her on the ground, shouting for help. The two figures fled, vanishing into the darkness as quickly as they'd appeared. Eddie, desperate, called emergency services, his voice frantic as he begged for an ambulance. Nearby residents heard the screams. Teresa Farrandon, a mom of 3 living across from the park, was watching TV when her son paused his Xbox, alerted by the noise. Teresa and her friend Kelly Smith ran to the park, finding Jodie lying on her back, moaning, with Eddie by her side. Teresa tried CPR, unaware the broken blade was still in Jodie's back. A man in a van stopped to help, pressing his coat against the wound, while another friend grabbed kitchen roll to stem the bleeding. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but Jodie's injuries were catastrophic. The knife had caused massive trauma and hemorrhage, as confirmed by a post-mortem at Eastham Mortuary. Despite their efforts, she was pronounced dead at 10:26 p.m., just over an hour after the attack. The park, once a place of laughter, became a crime scene, cordoned off by police tape as forensic officers combed for evidence. Jodie's friends, still in shock, told police there'd been no confrontation, no warning, just a sudden, unprovoked act. The Metropolitan Police's Homicide and Major Crime Command took over, with Acting Detective Chief Superintendent John Ross vowing to find those responsible. "Her death is a tragedy," he said, urging witnesses to come forward. As the investigation kicked into high gear, detectives retraced Jodie's final hours, confirming her movements through witness statements and phone records. The turning point in the case was a call to police from a local man. He said that on the night of the attack on Jodie, he had seen 2 men run out of the park and get into a black Vauxhall Corsa before speeding away. The witness also said there was at least one other man in the car, the driver. CCTV footage became the investigation's backbone. Harold Hill's streets, dotted with cameras, offered a patchwork of grainy images. By March 2nd, police had pulled footage from St. Neots Road and nearby Retford Road, capturing 2 males leaving Amy's Park around 9:25 p.m. One wore a dark jacket with a distinctive pattern, the other a hoodie, their faces obscured. The footage showed them moving quickly, heading toward Hildene Avenue, a residential area known for low-level drug activity. The footage also showed a black Vauxhall Corsa. On March 3rd, police arrested 20-year-old Manuel Petrovich. The black Vauxhall seen at the scene belonged to him. He denied involvement in Jodie's murder and said his car had been stolen in a knife-point robbery. But he later admitted owning the Vauxhall and having a mobile phone he used to sell cannabis. Petrovich refused to name anyone he had been with that night, due to my own safety and the safety of my family, saying people had already gone to his house looking for him. During further questioning of Petrovich, he recounted the events of the night Jodie died, but due to fear, he identified those who attacked her as Man A and Man B. Petrovich said he had been with a friend on March 1st who received a call from Man A asking for a lift. They picked up Man A, who was with another person, Man B, and they drove to Harold Hill so Man A could collect some weed and some money, he said. The 2 unnamed men got out at Harold Hill, leaving Petrovich and his friend in the car, according to the statement. He said Man A and B were gone up to 5 minutes and seemed calm when they returned. He said, "There was nothing unusual about their behavior. Nothing about them made me suspicious. I did not see either of them carrying anything. My friend and I were told that man A was collecting money and drugs. After dropping the two men off, Petrovich claimed a black male had pulled a knife to his throat and snatched his car keys. He said, "The next day I heard that a girl had been stabbed in Harold Hill. I hoped it had nothing to do with why I was in the area with man A and man B." Detectives identified a second suspect, a 19-year-old local known to hang around Harold Hill's drug scene, based on witness descriptions of a black male in his late teens. To avoid tipping him off, police kept his name under wraps, referring to him only as Suspect A in early briefings. But the net widened further. By March 5th, two more men, aged 30 and 38, were arrested in Romford, suspected of assisting the primary suspects. A 50-year-old man was also detained for allegedly helping dispose of evidence, though he was quickly released. "We're looking at a network, not just one or two individuals," Detective Chief Inspector Dave Wellams told BBC News, hinting at a deeper criminal undercurrent. Neighbors around Retford Road added more pieces. A woman in her 40s, living opposite the raided flat, told police she'd seen dodgy characters coming and going for weeks, often late at night. She mentioned a young teen, matching suspect B's description, who seemed to run errands for older men. These accounts pointed to a drug-related motive, as Harold Hill had a known issue with cannabis, often involving teens as runners. Detectives hypothesized that Jodie's group might have been mistaken for rivals or caught in a territorial dispute, though her clean record, she had no link to drugs, made this puzzling. The investigation wasn't without setbacks. The two older men arrested earlier were released, their involvement unproven. By March 10th, 9 days after Jodie's death, the police were closing in. Acting on a tip, officers from the Metropolitan Police's Homicide and Major Crime Command targeted a house on Rogers Road in Dagenham, linked to Aaron Isaac's uncle. They suspected Ong Akwi, man A, and Isaac's man B were hiding there, lying low after the attack. At 7 p.m., armed officers surrounded the property, their body cams rolling. What unfolded was straight out of a movie. Svensson Ong Akwi, then 19, scrambled over a rear flat roof in a desperate bid to escape, only to crash through a conservatory below, glass shattering around him. "Stay where you are, show me your hands," an officer shouted, per footage released by the Metropolitan Police. Handcuffed and dazed, Ong Akwi protested, "What? Murder? I killed no one," his voice caught on body cam.
Suspicion of murder.
What? Murder?
Murder.
Killed no one.
His phone contained texts linking him to Petrovich and mentioning business in Amy's Park. A search of his home uncovered a jacket matching the CCTV footage, with traces of Jodie's blood on the sleeve. Meanwhile, Aaron Isaacs, 17, slipped out a window but didn't get far. Officers nabbed him in the back garden, where he'd tossed a rucksack containing a Rambo-style knife, 2 toothbrushes, and hair mousse, a bizarre mix that raised eyebrows. The arrests didn't stop there. A 16-year-old boy, a friend of Manuel Petrovich, whose name police did not release for legal reasons, was also arrested on suspicion of involvement in the crime. The police were casting a wide net, aware that Harold Hill's drug scene often involved networks of runners and dealers. Petrovich's arrest stemmed from CCTV showing his car, a black Vauxhall Corsa, near Amy's Park the night of the attack, suggesting he'd driven Ong Akwi and Isaacs to the scene. By May, all 4 faced charges, with Ong Akwi and Isaacs charged with murder, Petrovich and the 16-year-old with murder and manslaughter, and additional suspects, a 50-year-old man and a 38-year-old woman, briefly detained for assisting an offender, but released under investigation. Let's dive into the suspects' backgrounds, starting with Svensson Ong Akwi. Born March 29, 2000, Ong Akwi grew up in Harold Hill, not far from Amy's Park. Raised by his mother with 4 sisters, he had a turbulent childhood. marked by an absent father from Belgium whom he met briefly in 2015. Kicked out of home in 2017 for disrespectful behavior, he lived in a Romford social services hostel in Collier Row. A self-proclaimed boxer with dreams of going pro, Ongakwe was deep in the drug trade, with convictions for possessing and supplying cannabis and other substances. He'd breached a 6-week suspended sentence for handling stolen jewelry in 2018, per court records reported by The Guardian. Friends described him as a county lines dealer, moving drugs between London and rural areas, a world where violence was currency. In interrogation, Ongakwe was cagey, admitting he was in Amy's Park but claiming he'd only gone to pick up cannabis. He denied stabbing Jodie and pointed the finger at Isaacs, saying, "He's the one who lost his head." Aaron Isaacs, born January 27, 2002, was younger, but no stranger to trouble. Living in a barking flat with his mother and brother, Isaacs had a sad and hard start, as Judge Wendy Joseph later noted at the Old Bailey. His mother struggled with mental health issues, and he'd been known to children's services since age 4. His rap sheet included possession of a screwdriver, actual bodily harm, cannabis possession, and aggravated vehicle taking. In custody, Isaacs was defiant, tossing a rucksack with a knife during his arrest. During interrogation, he claimed he was just hanging out with Ongakwe, insisting he didn't know about any knife. "I didn't touch her," he told detectives, accusing Ongakwe of the attack and saying he'd only run because he was scared. Manuel Petrovich, the alleged driver, was a 20-year-old Romford local with ties to the same drug circles. His background was less documented, but he was known as a trusted associate of Ongakwe, willing to lend his car for jobs. In a prison conversation leaked to prosecutors and reported by Essex Live, Petrovich admitted he knew Ongakwe was targeting ops in Amy's Park, saying they chefed him up a couple of months before. He claimed he stayed in the car, unaware of the attack's outcome until later. Petrovich denied murder charges, arguing he didn't know Jodie was the target and hadn't intended harm. Jodie's group was mistaken for the intended targets, who chilled in the same area, per Petrovich's prison chat. "They went to bang out on their ops and banged on the wrong people," he told a friend, unaware he was being recorded. Anticipating arrest, Ongakwe took drastic steps to cover his tracks. He burned his clothes the night of the attack, except for his jacket, and disposed of the knife handle, which was never found. Isaacs ditched his own clothes, and both fled to Dagenham, hoping to evade police. Their interrogations were a game of deflection, each blaming the other, with Ongakwe claiming he was just a lookout, and Isaacs insisting he didn't sign up for this. Yet, evidence mounted: the blood-stained jacket, phone records showing they'd planned the job, and CCTV placing them at the scene. As charges were formalized, Harold Hill grappled with the motive's senselessness. Jodie, a Girl Scout with no connection to drugs, was caught in a feud she didn't know existed. The arrests brought relief but no closure. Her family, especially her dad Peter, demanded justice. Peter set up the Jodie Chesney Foundation, a charity to steer youth away from knife crime, describing Jodie on its website as a beautiful person who judged no one and loved everyone. Purple ribbons became a symbol of her legacy, with vigils and scout events honoring her kindness. Jodie's legacy rippled beyond Harold Hill. Her death sparked national debates on knife crime, with prosecutor Crispin Aylett noting, "Another young life is lost to a knife," a sentiment echoed in Parliament. The foundation funded youth programs, and Peter's advocacy pushed for tougher laws, though he told The Guardian in 2020, "No law will bring her back." The trial began on September 17, 2019, at the Old Bailey, one of London's most historic courts. 4 defendants stood accused: Svensson Ongakwe, 19, Aaron Isaacs, 17, Manuel Petrovich, 20, and a 16-year-old boy, unnamed for legal reasons. The courtroom was heavy with emotion. Jodie's family, including her dad, Peter, stepmom, Joanne, and sister Lucy, attended nearly every day, wearing purple ribbons in her memory. "I wanted them to see what they'd done to us," Joanne told the London Economic, her resolve unshaken despite the pain. Prosecutor Crispin Aylett led the Crown's case, arguing that all 4 defendants were complicit in a brutal act of unprovoked violence driven by a drug turf war. He told jurors Jodie was an entirely blameless individual caught in a case of mistaken identity, likely mistaken for rivals who frequented Amy's park. Aylett leaned on damning evidence: CCTV showing Petrovich's black Vauxhall Corsa near the park, Ongaqui's blood-stained jacket, and phone records linking the group to a planned job. He cited a prison conversation where Petrovich admitted Ongaqui targeted ops but banged on the wrong people. Aylett argued Ongaqui was the stabber, with Isaacs as his enthusiastic supporter, while Petrovich and the 16-year-old knowingly aided the attack. "This was no spontaneous act," Aylett said, per BBC News, emphasizing the group's intent to cause serious harm, making them all liable for murder under joint enterprise law. The defense teams fought back, each trying to distance their client from the crime. Charles Sherrard, representing Ongaqui, admitted his client was in the park but denied he stabbed Jodie. Sherrard pointed to Isaacs, claiming he was the attacker, and argued Ongaqui's clothes, a white hoodie and gray tracksuit, didn't match witness descriptions of a black-clad figure. Sarah Forshaw, defending Petrovich, insisted he was just a driver, unaware of any violent plan. "If Manny knew what was coming, he'd have turned off his phone like Ongaqui," she told jurors. Natasha Wong, for Isaacs, argued he was a runner with no violent intent, denying he carried a knife or knew Ongaqui's plan. Louise Sweet, defending the 16-year-old, stressed his lack of a violent history, urging jurors to see him as a bystander, not a participant. Each defense leaned on the lack of direct evidence, like DNA on the knife, hoping to sow doubt. After 45 hours of testimony, including Eddie Coyle's account of the attack and forensic evidence of the 18-centimeter deep wound, the jury deliberated for just over 5 hours. On November 7, 2019, they delivered their verdict. Ongaqui and Isaacs were found guilty of murder. Petrovich and the 16-year-old were acquitted of all charges, a decision that stunned Jodie's family but reflected the jury's doubt about their intent. Sentencing came on November 18th, with Judge Wendy Joseph condemning the pathetic drug dispute that killed Jodie. Ongaqui, deemed the stabber, received life imprisonment with a minimum of 26 years. Isaacs, his accomplice, got life with a minimum of 18 years. "I am sure whoever drove the knife through Jodie's body intended to cause death," Judge Joseph said. The courtroom wept as impact statements were read, with Peter saying, "I have lost the most precious human being I will ever know." The verdict brought bittersweet relief to Jodie's family. Peter, speaking outside court, said he was over the moon about the convictions, but heartbroken by the loss. Lucy, Jodie's sister, wrote in her statement, "I'm only 20 years old and already I'm dreading my life, capturing the family's shattered future." Joanne, who split from Peter in early 2020 due to grief strain, told The Sun, "I'm happy justice has been served, but I'm not sure I'll ever feel satisfied." The acquittals stung. Joanne felt Petrovich's role as driver warranted punishment, but the family focused on Jodie's memory. The Jodie Chesney Foundation continues its work, hosting a 2024 fundraiser that raised £10,000 for anti-knife crime workshops, per its website. Peter, now 45, posted on X in March 2025, marking Jodie's would-be 23rd birthday. "Another year without you, but your light still shines." Jodie's story leaves us with a haunting question. How many more lives must be lost before knife crime's grip on our cities loosens? Her death was a mistake, but her life was a gift, a reminder to cherish those we love and fight for a safer world. What can we do to ensure no family endures this pain again? That's it for Jodie's story, Checkered Sky viewers. Thank you for joining us on this heartbreaking journey. If this moved you, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it to keep Jodie's memory alive. Drop a comment. Let us know what true crime story you want next. Until then, stay safe, hold your loved ones close, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.